would do an up-close video looking at the new sentiment strip dies from Tonic. These have recently been released on Hochanda and are available to pre-order from a number of different online retailers, including Craftstash, so I'll put the links to where you can get them below. And there's 7 word dies in the collection. They're this gorgeous scripty font, and it's really, really fine. When I first cut these, I was like, how on earth have they managed to get the detail in them? It's crazy. And they also come with a separate outside piece, which I like to call the bubble, because it's kind of a bubble around the word. So I'll show you one of the dies up close. You can see really how fine that detail is that it cuts. And then you've got the bubble around the edge too, and I will show you them cut out in a minute as well. So these are the 7 words. You get thanks, always useful, with love, hello, another really useful one, celebrate, also really useful, believe, which will be great for your Christmas cards because you can like put believe in the wonder, or always believe, or believe in the season, or you know, kind of like, because it's believe in Father Christmas and stuff. Always great for wedding cards. And for you as well. So a really good selection of words, and I think they retail at like $7.99 each, which is a brilliant price too. So I thought I would show you exactly how they cut, and I'm going to do a couple of examples of the ways that I like to use word dies like this, and at the end of the video I will also put in a load of photos of all the samples, or a few of the samples that I made for the shows when they were on Hochanda as well, because I haven't got those samples still, so I'll just put the photos at the end. But let's get on to showing you what they look like when you cut them. So I think I'm going to use always, and maybe I'll use 2 different ones. I'll show you always and thanks. So, this card it's just a random background that I created ages ago. I think I used Distress Stains and then obviously salt on it as well. This is from a really long time ago. And this was another one using some cheapy re-inkers I got, I think. So, this card I'm going to cut the bubble out of vellum. And so I'm just going to snip a piece to size, and I'm going to cut the main portion out of white. I think I'll do it white, yeah, because white's going to stand out really nicely on that. So I'll do the main thanks in white. Now this, my favourite kind of white card to use is 300 GSM. I mean, you can tell how thick that is. And these still cut that perfectly, which is incredible. Like, the first time I cut one, I didn't like try it with a thinner card first. I was like, oh, I'll just cut it straight out of 300 GSM card like I always use, and it worked perfectly. So they really are fantastically manufactured, and the design is brilliant on them. Okay, so I'm going to do that for that card, and then for this card, first of all I want to die cut this with one of my Crafty Potential double stitched rectangles to give it a nice edge like this one already has. And then for this one I am going to cut the bubble from white. I don't really need the whole length, but I'll do it that way, like that. So I'm going to cut the bubble from white, and then I'm going to cut the intricate piece out of the pretty colours. I hadn't thought of doing this, it seems obvious to me now, but I hadn't thought of doing this when I was doing my samples for the shows, but I saw Paula do it on one of the demos, so I thought I would show you in this video. You can also, some of the cards I did for the shows, you can also create shaker cards with them, which I really love. So you would use this one to cut your aperture, and you would create your shaker behind it. So you put acetate behind this, outline it with the foam tape, and fill it full of sequins and stuff. and then you'd cut the intricate one and stick it over the top on the acetate, so you have the shaky stuff behind the word, which is one of my favourite things to do with these dies. And I also did building the background using the two pieces together. I also cut the intricate words from funky foam, like this kind of stuff. Oh, I got this reduced from my local craft shop, but this is just kids funky foam, sort of thick. Cut it out of that, snip off the two end pieces, so I just had the word, and stuck it to an acrylic block just with like a tape runner, and then stamped all over the background too. So there's tons of different ways to use these dies, and if you've got a pretty background, like these launched with the new Nuvo Aquaflow colours from Tonic, so these can make really simple cards when you use something beautiful to make the backgrounds, or even if you don't like making backgrounds, you could just use pattern papers as well. But anyway, I'm rambling, so let's get on with a bit of die cutting. I like to use my Tonic Tangerine. Yes, it's got an A4 platform, so you can cut loads of things at once, which I really love. And I love that the plates don't warp. Look, still perfectly straight, and look how much I've cut into them. This is a fantastic machine, and obviously you can tell that it's fantastic because I used a really intricate die to cut 300 GSM card, and it cut perfectly. Well, I'll show you in a minute how well it cut. Okay, so I'm going to put all of them on and run this through. That cracking sounds normal, by the way, as well. Okay. So we've got our rectangle cut. This is with one of my Crafty Potential rectangles. This is from the Fleur de Lis set. It gives that gorgeous double stitched edge, and I love how close together they are as well. Then we've got our bubble cut from 300 GSM white card, which is going to go on this card in a second. Then we've got our bubble cut from vellum. And then we have got, look at that, perfectly cut. First time, one time through the machine, with all those other dies on as well, from 300 GSM card, and it's perfect. It's crazy. I don't know how they do it. Just peel it out gently, and then get your craft pick and poke out all the little pieces. And then we can stick that onto our vellum bubble and add it straight onto our card. And the great thing about doing them like this, with the card onto the vellum, you can decide exactly where you want it on your card. Yeah, that one does open that way. You could put it down there, maybe to hide that white portion of the background. You could put it near the top, you could put it right in the middle, you could put it over to one side, you could put it landscape. You can add other elements onto your cards as well, but I love that if you do it on the vellum, you can really just place it anywhere you want. Okay, so now we're going to do the second part of this one. So we're going to take the Always die and some tape. And then I think I'm going to do this card landscape, and I think maybe I want the Always to go about here. So I'm just eyeballing, I don't really mind if it's straight or not. And then we'll just put the tape on to hold it in place. And then run this through. sorry for my squeaky chair. Okay, so now we can take this piece apart. Just be careful with the tape, you don't want to rip your background. So you've now got your always aperture. You could do something like this. You could place another piece of card underneath and add in the other tiny bits that it's cut out on the S and the Y and the L, so that the colour shows through, or you could add double-sided adhesive behind and you could put glitter through it if you wanted, or you can do the technique which I saw Paola do and wanted to try. So we just carefully take that out and it's cut perfectly. Again, this was 300 GSM white card that I'd originally done that background on as well. Look at that. Gorgeous rainbow word. Absolutely perfect. So then we're just going to take the white die cut and we would stick that straight on top, and then you piece the background back together to hide that we ever took anything out of it. Perfect. So I will show you how I like to stick these together. Okay, so my two favourite kinds of glue are the Cosmic Shimmer Dries Clear acrylic glue, which actually it's a really quick grab and it dries matte as well, so even if it squishes out from underneath your die cut, it actually dries matte so you can hardly see it. Or the Nuvo Deluxe Adhesive, which also dries pretty quickly. It does like dry a little bit shiny, but it's more matte than a normal PVA glue, but just not quite as matte as the Cosmic Shimmer. And I like to decant these into these little fine tip applicator bottles, and these ones are Woodware ones. I just find it so much easier when trying to put a tiny bit of adhesive on the back of a die cut. So let's do this one first. So we want to just try and hold it in one place and then just put tiny amounts of glue on the back of it, which is really simple to do when you've got such a fine applicator on the bottle. Okay, and then to make sure this doesn't squish out too much, especially because you're putting it onto vellum and glue really shows on vellum, I just like to dab it on the back of my hand just to get any excess blobs of glue off. And then just place that straight down, and you can just manoeuvre it into place so it fits perfectly on the bubble. There we go. Okay, sometimes you get these little stringy bits, especially when you're using a thicker card on a really fine die cut. But if you poke at them with your pokey tool, they come off really easy. And then finally, we want to stick this onto our card. I think I'm going to go portrait. See, look at that, just gorgeous masculine-y autumn colours, and you've got perfect masculine thank you card there. I think this was pine needles, vintage photo, wild honey and aged mahogany distress stains, but this was literally like 2 or 3 years ago I made this, so. But that just goes to show, when you're in the mood for making backgrounds, you might as well just make some and leave them to dry, cut them with a nice stitch die if that's what you like, and then just have them all ready. So when you need a quick card, dies like this are absolutely perfect because they're a gorgeous sentiment and they're so quick and easy to cut as well. So I'm just going to put that straight on there and then trim off the excess. And also, the reason why I like putting them on vellum is because You can still see your background through it, so you're not covering up too much of a gorgeous background. But it kind of mutes it a bit just so the sentiment stands out better. If I flip this one over so it's backwards, you would still see a white sentiment on this background, but I think the vellum just sort of helps it stand out a little bit more, which I like. And with these word dies, you could also, I did this on a couple of my samples, I did 2 little gift tags, and you can snip off the strip, I suppose, from the sentiment, so you could snip it off. You could leave a little tail on the S and snip off across the cross on the T, then stick that onto the bubble, and then use your scissors again to trim the bubble down to size, so you could just have the small word as well. You don't have to have it in a strip, which is nice. So that's that one. And then for this one, we're going to stick the always onto the bubble first. Again, doing the same as we did before, just small amounts of glue and then dab it off. And before you glue it to the bubble as well, you could use one of your sparkle pens over the top and then let it dry. I just find it easier to do that before you put it on the bubble, because you can be really messy then. You don't have to stick just to the word. And that gives a nice effect too. So there we go. Perfect. Then I think it's probably going to be easiest if we stick it to one first. So I'm going to put some glue along the bottom edges of this. And then just place that on here. Then I think the easiest thing to do, so that our back panel is still the same size as the original die cut, I think the easiest thing is going to be to add some more glue to this, just on the edge again, and then add the rest of the rectangle on top, just leaving a narrow gap so we can, we know that how wide the sentiment was, so I think that's the easiest way to do it. Perfect. I really like that look. A little bit wonky, but it doesn't matter. I don't mind if it's wonky. Okay. Then snip that off on that side, and voila. So that is 2 ways of using the new sentiment strip dies from Tonic. My favourite way of using the bubble from vellum and then your cardstock sentiment, but you can also cheat and take the sentiment out of a pretty background you've done and put it on a white bubble too. Or as I said before, you can do shakers with them, you can make a whole background with them, you can snip them into separate little words as well, you can use them on your cards, you can use them on your gift tags, gift boxes, anything really. It's just a word die, so it can be used for absolutely anything. So, and I'll recap again, you get 7 words in the collection. You get with love, thanks, for you, hello, celebrate, believe, and always. So I hope you enjoyed this little up close video, and I'm sure there'll be more in the future, so hope to see you again soon. Bye.